They had written it down, tanning
contest. Did the girls like doing this? The women, I shouldn't say girls.
Well, for fucking money in front of 10,000 people or whatever, yes, they did. But you know,
did it devalue them as wrestlers?
Well, they weren't. Look, they weren't wrestlers anyway. Sonny's
China.
Well, wait a minute. Sonny's never claimed to be a wrestler. Marlena's never claimed to be a wrestler. China was a bad wrestler, and then there's Sable.
Right.
So it didn't devalue them as wrestlers because they weren't wrestlers, but it just, to me, is like, you know. But I mean, when it was contained to that, it was fine. But once again, then there's the Sable situation. Vince Russo was madly fixated on Sable. Vince McMahon thought that Sable was the most gorgeous creature to ever. As soon as Sable came up with, Vince wanted Johnny B. Bad. Vince had suddenly discovered somehow, after all this time, Johnny B. Bad, and thought that he was just great, and thought he was going to be a star. So when Mark Marrow, who played Johnny B. Bad on television, his contract came available, Vince wants him. And he gave him, he flew him and Sable up to the office to have the meeting. He didn't realize, which Bruce tried to mention to him, and I chimed in for what it was worth. He wasn't getting Johnny B. Bad because Johnny B. Bad was a WCW trademark and character, and Mark Marrow, this is what later has come back to bite the WWE in the ass as far as their developmental program. Mark Marrow, since the time he got into wrestling, had been trained to be Johnny B. Bad. He was never trained to work. He was trained to play a character. And as a result, he had the 7 to 12 minute Johnny B. Bad match and the Johnny B. Bad promo and the Johnny B. Bad, he was Johnny B. Bad. He never learned how to be Mark Marrow. This is what the problem is now when guys are taught to play characters. So they bring Mark Marrow up, and he's a very intelligent young man and very fucking well-spoken and makes a good image. And there comes Sable, his wife Rena, with him. And Bruce tells me, oh, we're going to bring Rena too. We'll call her Sable. Why? He's a babyface. Why does he need a girl? Well, it's help, try what I said. Number one, it's going to take attention away from a babyface with a girl, especially a girl with fake snavuses out like this. What the fuck? Why? Guys are going to resent him. He doesn't know what he's doing anyway. Remember that. What are we going to fucking come up with? Johnny B. Bad Light or whatever. Blah, blah, blah. It's not going to work out. Come to find out, it didn't work out. However, Vince was just taking, what a lady she was in the meeting, and she's beautiful. And then he and Russo would sit and go back and forth and imagine in white panties. There was the phrase that came up sometimes. And all this. I'm like, number one, I don't want to fantasize about a lady. To me, that's like being on a diet and fantasizing about a low-fat Twinkie. If I want to fantasize, I'm not going to fantasize about a lady because that's not what the fantasy is about. I don't want her to be a lady. Secondly, Sable never she wanted to be on television. She wanted to be in Playboy. She wanted to be on TV. She wanted to be a star. She didn't want to be in the wrestling business. That was just the means to the end. She didn't care about being in the wrestling business. She didn't want to train not even to be a wrestler, just to do anything physical convincingly. The one time Luna had to hit her with the belt, she ended up pushing it into her back like that because she was afraid, oh my God, I'll get hurt. Well, it ain't ballet, sister. You're making a lot of fucking money for the plastic surgeon you chose, which was your only fucking talent. It's not, I never had any words with her as a person, except the concept of Sable galled me. She wasn't a good speaker. She couldn't cut a promo. She wasn't a good dancer. She didn't have any rhythm. She wasn't interested in being in the wrestling business or learning how to wrestle. She was making a lot of fucking money and taking up a fucking spot. But because these two middle-aged men were fixated on how beautiful she was, when half of that was created and arranged by a plastic surgeon, over here, Sonny was an out front cunt, whereas Sable was an undercover cunt. I said she's gonna sooner or later, when she gets in some leverage, then you're gonna find out, because she's a snot to all the other girls.
That's what happened.
She's just nice to you guys. She's an undercover cunt. Sonny's an out front cunt. She's a bitch and she's out front with it. But she's talented. She can cut a promo. She loves the business. Marlena was talented, could cut a promo, was professional. Sable was the one they were fixated on. Holy shit.
Just because of her look, I guess, it sounds
well,
like.
what else? What the fuck was there?
I don't know.
In the production meetings, it would sometimes be a half an hour when she come out for the T-shirt spot. Where's the T-shirt spot gonna go with Sable, blah, blah, blah. You know, and that Stepford wife, monotonous tone, nasal drone to her voice. This is for all the men who want to see me and the women who want to be me, or whatever the fuck. I said one time, I said, well, I don't know what they got for putting a live microphone in front of Sable's mouth, but it should have been 3 to 5 years. So then, and I'll tell you one more story, we'll get back to, so then she kills Mark Marrow's career. Because, of course, Marrow is overshadowed by this fucking statuesque blonde next to him, and he don't know how to be anybody but Johnny B. Bad. So they switch him heel, and he's got a boxer gimmick, and he's got this and that and all the other things. Finally, he is booked in Los Angeles, either Anaheim or L.A., one of the big arenas in Los Angeles, against Steve Austin in a main event. And the week before on television or pay-per-view or whatever the fuck it was, I think it was a pay-per-view, because I remember... Actually, they told me they were going to do this at the warehouse at the studio in Stamford, and I was gobsmacked, but I wasn't about to get, I wanted to see if this actually would take place. Sable, 125 pounds with the pneumatic tits, power bombs the 230-pound Mark Marrow on the floor outside the ring on the mats right at the show. Do you remember this happening? You remember do you remember that? Okay, a pigeon gallery over there. Steve Austin immediately picks up the phone and calls Vince McMahon and says, you know that match that we were going to have in Los Angeles next week, who am I wrestling now? Because this fucking moron let his 125-pound wife powerbomb him on live television around the world. Why is Stone Cold Steve Austin going to have 15 seconds worth of trouble whipping this fucking guy? Right. So pretty soon it was Mark Marrow was coming in carrying Sable's bags into the building, and that was the name of that tune, and he didn't see that coming, and I ain't got it yet. I'll tell you one thing, though. I understand why it is challenging to the young folks in this business. Jealousy can rear its ugly head, because they had mail slots in the office at Stamford, where this slot's for Jim Ross, and that slot's for Jim Cornette, and that slot's for Bruce Pritchard, or whatever, where we get all our memos and mail and everything. Well, Jim Ross and Jim Cornette was right next to each other, and one time... I pull out my memos, I'm looking through, I got Sable's Playboy contract. Why the fuck do I have Sable's Playboy contract? To Jim Ross, they put it in the wrong slot. So I put it back in. The point is, she made 5 times as much money in 1 year with that Playboy deal and doing what she claimed was performing in the wrestling business than my best year in the wrestling business. She made over $1 million. Totally undeserved, you know, and I mean, hey, it's great. It's wonderful Sable made $1 million. However, when I look at all the people that sacrifice and that want to get in the business and that work hard and that do good, that we're more talented and more capable and more driven, and somebody like that gets a shot, just like Ultimate Warrior. Ultimate Warrior got the fucking shot because Vince, in another life, if he could be reincarnated, wants to be Mr. fucking Olympia. And that's why he and his fucking son-in-law have bonded. This is Vince, and that's the son-in-law. Sable and the Ultimate Warrior. But young folks in the business, if you let it eat you up, you will die. You will cut your throat, because it ain't fair. But it is off-putting.